Remember, everybody is a chess piece on the chessboard trying to make money.
If they had to throw you under the bus to save their job, chances are they'll probably do that.
But she used to hang out with you, but it didn't mean anything at the end of the day.
Build relationships, manage expectations, learn who's who
was worth keeping and who was not.
because she came from a bigger company that her changes were going to be more impactful.
She assumed that HR could help her keep her job. You still want to be a desirable candidate in the open market. These two categories share the one general piece of advice that I have. If you want to be good at the game and if you want to win the game, you have to understand the rules of the game, and you also should know what each player in the game does and what they want from the game in order to win on their end. So if you look at dating the way you look at a job and a career, is you have to know what it is that everybody else on the board wants and needs in order to survive, thrive, and get what they want out of the deal. I can use this analogy for this whole episode because when it comes to HR, their function is to be the bloodline that provides talent or removes anybody that's not contributing to the greater goal of the company's greater mission. So HR is there to create guardrails and make sure that piece of shit people don't do piece of shit things, or people don't abuse privileges or abuse their corporate card or finance, or there's a lot of things that go into a corporation that a CEO, a general manager, senior vice president, anybody that's in a role where they're managing a huge department, they can't necessarily be always checking if the water is running, the electricity is working, key cards are working. You pay these people a lot of money to solve big problems that are going to generate revenue. So a lot of these miscellaneous characters on the chessboard that you may not know what they do, they're there for a very important reason. With respect to all the people that do HR, one function that Rich is saying is like, don't get it fucked up. They work for you as much as they work for the senior staff. So while you're venting to them, they're qualifying you subconsciously. Because if Glenda from HR didn't hire you, she just got the job. So I mean, the common belief is that, let's say hypothetically, Glenda in HR is there to help you. I mean, Rich, you could jump in. I don't think you're wrong by assuming she's there to help you, but she's also equally there to help senior staff achieve their greater goal. Now, if you're someone that's constantly complaining about everybody at the office, you're someone that always has negative feedback about what's going on, these are human beings. They collect data like anybody else would. And when it comes time to either do some layoffs or do a company reorg, you might get the short end of the stick because you're just someone that's constantly complaining all the time. I don't feel comfortable giving this level of advice because I think everything is very detailed and you need to know more information. But I think that's the precaution you were giving, right, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have friends in HR, so I'm not saying HR people and directors and employees are bad. I'm saying you have to be careful about the relationship that you have with a HR person. I agree with you. I think they're in a position where they have to judge everyone, whether you're a friend or a peer or not. You're constantly being judged on your character, on what you say, on conflict mitigations, right? Like how well you get along with your colleagues and peers. And like you said, all these different data, they're collecting all these different data sets and making an assessment about you. And if you're the type of person who's always going to HR and you always have a complaint about someone, then guess what? You're going to be filed in a very unique area where when it comes time to layoffs, it's like, let's lay off the 10 people that constantly have issues with others because these others are actually high performers versus the guy who was always complaining.
Define high performer, because I think that's where the gap is at. You have someone that thinks HR is a fucking therapy session where they can go in there and just vent, and why HR is qualifying someone who vents over a high performer.
That's a great question. I mean, you have to understand, right? Like you're there for multiple reasons. You're there to collect a paycheck in return for providing value of skill or service for the greater mission of pushing a company forward, whether that be helping the company mitigate risk, increase or generate profits and revenue, and ultimately move the company forward and propel it forward. If you're sort of the black swan or like the cancer in the group of amongst high performers, then you're obviously an anomaly and an issue to the greater equation that is a company who's trying to move forward, reduce risk, increase profits. And on the journey of evaluating people, if you think that someone who's high performing, if you start to evaluate people, right, you're like, damn, this dude is getting projects over the line, he's bringing in revenue, he's closing in deals. Juanito over here is constantly complaining.
Why did you say it like HR was very white? Juanito. Shout out to Juanito, bro.
Juanito,
Juanito, because his father's name is Juan.
Yeah. But Juan over here is always complaining, right? Always has an issue, doesn't get along with people, always going to HR and venting about something or someone. Chances are, bro, you're cancer to the equation. And like I said, I'm a firm believer of out of sight, out of mind, bro. And when they start rallying up the troops of who they need to let go for a mass layoff,
yep, you're getting to my point. Yep.
you might be top of mind. It's like, and not in a good way. Like, you're top of mind because you're just always in the HR office complaining about something.
Bro, listen, it's funny you mentioned that because I actually wrote in my notes, true story, when I was working in fashion. This is like 4 jobs ago. I was really young. It was this really small company within a bigger company, and there was only like 10 people in there. We had our own HR person, but the company was so janky that like our alleged head of HR was really cool with this other girl that worked for this really small 10-person team. The head of HR was a party animal. She would go out a lot with the team. It was a small team. And I remember one girl, she was like, not best friends, but she was really close with this other girl who's in HR. And she would always come to the office 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours late. Like you said earlier, and you made me think about it, they did a reorg in the company where they took some people and they put it in a larger company. And the one girl who was really cool with the head of HR, she was one of 2 people who got let go. And I remember getting cool enough with my boss at the time and the head of HR that I had asked her, like, yo, whatever happened to, let's say, Erica? She said, bro, she came to work late every day. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, but she used to hang out with you. It didn't mean anything at the end of the day because what she assumed was a good relationship. She assumed that HR could help her keep her job, which is not really her decision. And the funniest part is that HR was also part of the group that sat down and decided who was worth keeping and who was not. And to your point, which we're bringing it full circle, who was serving the common goal? Something like that was a rude awakening, one of many in corporate America, because this person used to break bread with this person, hang out with this person, go out with them. But when push came to shove, they were a part of the decision-making team that let her go. I couldn't think of a finer point to put on our number 1, which was HR is not your friend. And we're obviously titling it that way to be a little aggressive, but what's the takeaway for you there, Rich?
That if it's me versus you, you're gonna choose me every time, right? That's the weird nuance about like work allegiances and alliances, is like, don't get it twisted. Like a work friend is exactly that. A work, like, you put the word work in front of friend. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're a friend outside of work. And if push came to shove, if they had to throw you under the bus to save their job, chances are that they'll probably do that. So just be aware of that. I think is important.
Rich, we should stay right there. This wasn't in the original script, but I love that one. A work friend is a work friend. Now, pin that against a real life friend or somebody that when you first get a job, you think this person has to be loyal to you. I even think bosses or middle managers fall into that category as well. You might think you're cooler with them than you actually are.
Bro, I think that's the biggest mistake you could ever make. You could be cool with your boss or your manager or your supervisor, but I feel like you should never try to become friends with them. And I'll tell you why. Because the minute that you start venturing off into personal issues, bro, now they've officially been given a green light to pass boundaries that they shouldn't be passing. So for example, if you told them that you went out drinking last night and you ended up calling out or whatever, bro, now they know that you were out drinking, right? And they're gonna use that against you, or any sort of like personal story that
social media
or anything that can taint the judgment of you to your manager is a net negative to that relationship. And you think that you can do that because they're your friend. They're not your friend, bro. They're your supervisor, they're your manager, they're a colleague. I would use the word friend loosely because they can use things against you if you share personal things that can affect you in the long run.
This is a tricky one, and I'm glad we stumbled on this point, because I could see a young person just treating the job, and I'm sure we both did it too. You're coming from college, you get into a job, you start making some friends. I'm pretty sure the natural question they're gonna ask is like, what's wrong with hanging out with my work friends? I don't get it. Like, they are my friends.
That's fine too. And listen, I've worked in jobs where I've had actual friends at that job. The only reason why I got the job was because I was referred by a friend that's already working there. I think it's cool to build camaraderie amongst your peers and your colleagues, go get a drink after work. I'm a strong proponent of that. I told you about this off air. I said building relationships and building allegiances and alliances with people that you naturally connect with, I think is super important, because these folks advocate for you when you're not around.